Greetings from Long Bay Campground in Coromandel. Wish you could be here, but the oysters are here, and we are here, and you're not here.
They're so fresh.
Well, let's go for a kayak. We're here at Long Bay Campground in the Coromandel. Gonna head out that way. See what we can find. Not expecting anything, but let's go have some fun. Well, we decided to go up to the Coromandel to look for oysters, the humble Pacific rock oyster. These oysters grow up in the Coromandel region and around Auckland in New Zealand. They start their life off as eggs and then they get bigger and then they go through one of two different things. They either go and they settle on rocks naturally, or they will be farmed and put on those wooden sticks before they finally reach the end of their life as a full-sized oyster. This kayak is pretty awesome. You can take a lot of stuff, but man, is it heavy to pull. Whilst driving all the way from Christchurch to Coromandel, we loaded up the back of the SUV and we had to really think about what are we going to take and what are we not going to take. And when loading up that kayak in the back of the car, man, it took up a lot of space. You know, the kayak, the paddles, the seats, the inflation foot pump, everything. A lot of space.
Alright, found a little rocky outcrop. Let's have a swim.
And I brought my wetsuit, but the great thing is I didn't even have to use it because that water is like 25 degrees, so I just wore my shorts and the rash top. One of the brilliant ideas that I had that turned out to be not so brilliant was to buy one of these weight belts, one of the ones with the Velcro pouches. And I decided, you can see me doing it here, to go and put rocks in it. And when fully laden up, it gives you approximately 4 to 5 kilograms of weight. And I figured, well, that should be adequate for, snorkeling, where the only neoprene that I'm wearing is just my gloves, my boots, and my hood. But it turned out to be not quite enough weight. So, good idea in theory, but not that well executed. Before attempting to remove oysters from the rocks, I decided to have a snorkel around, have an explore, because I wasn't really sure what I was going to find. I wasn't expecting power, and I definitely didn't see any power, but I thought maybe there'd be some kinner, and I thought there'd be a bit more seaweed around. Turns out there wasn't too much seaweed at all, but there certainly were plenty of oysters on the rocks, and I had a wee bit of a theory, which was that the oysters were going to be a bit larger underwater than the ones on top of the rocks that are above the waterline, and that turned out to be accurate. And so I spent quite a bit of time exploring and surveying the area first. Even found some scallop shells indicating scallops nearby. And there was plenty of fish around, mostly small ones, but always nice to see the marine life in action. And I must say, the amazing thing about snorkeling in the Coromandel is the crystal clear water. I mean, this water is so much clearer than what we get down here in Canterbury. And I certainly found a piece of rubbish as well. Found a snorkel here.
Found a snorkel.
After fooling around for long enough, I decided it was time to actually get into action and try to remove some oysters from the rocks. Let's have a wee drink first. Got to stay hydrated.
Well, and there's no power, no kinner, no crayfish. I wasn't expecting anything really like that to be there. Maybe kinner, but there's not enough seaweed. But there are heaps of oysters. Look at that. Reasonable sized oysters too. And you just got these off the rocks, didn't you, Coco?
Yes. Tasty.
And at this point of the story, I discover the unlovely truth about harvesting wild oysters off of rocks, which is that they're awkward, they're difficult, they're hard to open, they're hard to get off, and they don't grow in a uniform way.
Now Coco's got even more of them than I do. Oh, look at that.
Ready to eat.
Ready to eat. Ah.
Tiorepe is the te reo word for rock oyster, and there's a correct and an incorrect way to remove them from the rocks. The correct way is to remove the entire shell, and then open the shell later on, and then eat the oyster. You can use whatever tools work. Here's an example of getting the entire shell off. This is the right way. The wrong way, which is done often by accident, is to remove only half of the shell, which is what happened in this instance. If that happens, you should crush up the remaining shell on the rock, because if you don't, then there's not going to be any other oyster that's ever going to grow there.
Go, whole shell. It's a good size one. That's ideally what you want to be taking off the rock.
Whilst we were out there that day, we saw some kids. They decided to call us the Oyster People because they didn't know our names. So just remember that whatever you do out there, you're setting an example for the young ones.
Alright, that just about does it. That is snorkeling in the Coromandel and picking Pacific rock oysters off of the rocks. Something we can't do in the South Island because we don't have oysters in most of the South Island. Thanks for watching. Bye.